Hey, everybody, welcome to the Talk Shit Get Bit podcast. I'm your host, Michael Parker,
I'm your co-host, Chris.
and this is our new weekly podcast where we talk all things canine. So, in this first episode here, we're going to give you a little introduction to who I am, who Chris is, and a little teaser about what's going to happen in these weekly episodes. Again, my name is Michael Parker. I am a Marine Corps veteran. I did not come from a dog training background. After leaving the military, where I worked as an aviation mechanic, I transitioned into a cowboy lifestyle, working with horses and cattle. However, when I got my service dog back in 2022, um, sparked a desire within me to understand dogs better. And really, I found it was an easy transition to canines, very similar, slightly different, but very similar to training horses. So it came quite naturally to me. Absolutely love doing it. I like training the pet dogs, but I'm more passionate about the dogs with behavioral issues, being able to troubleshoot what's going on with those dogs and improve that and help give them and their owner a better life. I'm also a huge advocate for protection dogs. They're absolute blast to train and work with, and completely different bond there with those type of dogs. But we also do a lot of service dogs, which again, there's a lot of feeling of purpose and training those because you know that dog's going to improve the quality of life for that new handler. But that's a little bit about me. I've been running Devildog Canine for almost 2 years now. Not quite of an extensive background as Chris over here. I'll let him share his background.
Hey guys, I'm Chris. I'm the owner of Andy Dog Training and Overdrive K9 Detection. We're based here in Kentucky. We have a pretty large network. So pretty similar to Michael. I'm an 8-year Army combat vet. One tour to Iraq. Came back. Had my fair share of complications and troubles that I went through. When I finished out my contract in the reserve component, I took a career in corrections, did that state and county at a couple different agencies. Same, did not come from a canine background. My background in dogs started when I lost my brother to a substance abuse relapse induced suicide. Fought it, looked at it. I've struggled with substance abuse myself in the past. Very much a shining story that doesn't define who you are. You can become whatever you need to and whatever you want to succeed. We come from the ground up. Substance abuse again touched basically my entire family. That drove me to start Overdrive. I purchased my first working dog, went through a short apprenticeship. Still very good friends with my original mentor. No matter how much experience I have, no matter how many certificates I collect and hang on my wall and look fancy, I still call her all the time for advice. So very grateful for that relationship. That also led me to the belief that networking is everything. That's actually how me and Michael met. So long story short, we started with narcotics detection in rehabs in our local community and smaller jails that couldn't afford the canine units. Here in Kentucky, we run through elected jailers, not the sheriff's department, so it's a separate entity. Sometimes those two elected officials don't get along, and the sheriffs don't want to send their dog to hell. So that's where we step in. That turned into explosives detection and extended to firearms detection, and then extended to security, and it just kind of blew up overnight. I obsessed myself and utilized my GI Bill and the BRNE program to further my education and continued education while I was doing that education. I've accumulated a little over 20 certifications. I've got a nationally certified patrol dog, a nationally certified detection for dog for narcotics, and a nationally certified detection dog for explosives. We continue to get out and help wherever we can, and found out quick that the professional side of things, no matter how much fun and exciting and adrenaline it gives you and enjoyment, it doesn't really pay the bills at the end of the day. I wanted to do it full time, so I started applying the skills to pet training. That kind of took off as well. We've just been going from there. We don't really fall into a niche. We do it all. We work with Shih Tzus all the way up to Kangals. We work with behavior modification, reactivity, all the way up through basic obedience.
And man, the correlation there, like, I mean, everything's grounded in obedience. That's kind of your building block. So it all kind of just goes hand in hand. I didn't realize the substance abuse background. I guess we have that in common too. Definitely was, after the military, was a huge alcoholic. Working with horses and now working with dogs keeps me having that reason to stay sober. But yeah, man.
Yeah, it was the same. I got back home, went through a divorce and losing kids, same song and dance for, a lot of our brothers and sisters out there in the service and first responders included. Turned to alcohol to kind of numb the pain and answer and essentially self-medicate. Since I didn't really fall into the category of compliance or standard recovery, I chose to kind of handle it myself and, for lack of better words, just soldier up, push through it. Ended up not re-enlisting when the time came around and just continued my law enforcement career. Ended up having, a beautiful set of children. Was sober for years, and I relapsed twice since I've had my dog, which, like you said, your service dog. My main dog is also my service dog. Got my email in through my provider from the VA. Did my own training, did my own research. We help veterans every day with obtaining theirs, not only just the training of the dog, but just explaining the legalities of what you can and can't do, what you can and can't be asked. And if we train their dogs, we offer a lifetime support, not just for the life of the dog, but the life of the vet. Life it's important on every front, and it only takes a couple minutes to answer a phone call to help somebody that may be having some complications. So we want to be able to make sure that happens. The only times that I relapsed real hard was when I lost my brother, and again later down the road when I lost my 2-year-old daughter to cancer. That was the kind of the breaking point of addiction, and that was my rock bottom. And it's realistically, I drank that night knowing what I was doing, full accountability, knowing that it was wrong, knowing that I was not in control, and with zero intention to get up the next day. If it wasn't for my dog and the goals of being able to train and to help not just the community, but families that are struggling with their pets on top of that, then I would have become another statistic.
Dude, I feel you there. I lost my service dog back in May to unfortunate accident. So very unexpected. And man, you want to talk about, there's been some rough things in life. That was the hardest. And the reason I'm sitting here having a conversation with you today is because of my other dog, my explosive detection and protection canine. Like if I didn't have her, I absolutely would not have made it through that. Actually, everybody was very concerned I was going to fall back into alcohol. I didn't. I did have a beer that night when we laid Levi to rest, which everybody was kind of iffy on, but I took like 2 sips of it and poured the rest in there with him. But that was kind of his and my thing. Was we'd go to hockey games, I'd get a beer, I took the first sip, he got the second sip, and that was the only reason I bought the beer. But I as much as I wanted to fall back to that, I knew better. but I want it to be a statistic. Um, but thanks to Padme, dude, like she was right there by my side, and she realized too. And uh, if it wasn't for her, then yeah, I wouldn't have been here. So I was grateful that I had her, um, even though that loss hit really hard. But man, shifting to a little bit lighter of a topic. You kind of mentioned it. I think we both can agree that for both of us, it's that making an impact on other people's lives. That's why I love doing what I do, whether it's a protection dog, a service dog, even just a pet dog, right? It's that creating a positive change in that family and that dog's life. That's that sense of purpose, gives us that purpose and reason to wake up every morning. Again, why we decided to do a podcast is, hey, you know what? Let's touch more people. Let's share our experiences. Um, bring in others to share their experiences, whether law enforcement, military, or whatever, to share their expertise, and hopefully anybody that's listening to this is able to take something away, whether it's just for life or for improving the quality of your relationship with your canine. And that's a lot of what working with dogs is our relationship with the dog. And that was one of those things I noticed early on in working with dogs was a lot of people don't have a great relationship with their dog. And it's not because they don't want that. They just don't understand how to get that better relationship. And so that's kind of our aim here is to help you do better with your dog as far as communicating and building that relationship. So that's a lot of those topics we'll talk about, along with getting lived experience from ourselves and other experts and canine handlers. But for this episode, this is just kind of a teaser, just to ease you guys into what we're going to talk about. So I did come across an article earlier today on Facebook. Unfortunately, we all know how Facebook works. You can't ever find what you saw again. Um, but basically, the gist of that story, and kind of want to get your take on the situation and share how I viewed it. But the gist of the story is this law enforcement officer, who's a canine handler, and him and his canine got sent out along with a squad of officers to investigate a warehouse that they believed was manufacturing drugs. And so, of course, the canine handler and his canine go in first, and the dog is doing what he does, clearing room from room to room. uh, According to the officer, he went through the first two doors, no indications, gets to the third one and starts alerting. Um, Before they can make it there, the dog gets shot and is bleeding out on the floor, can't get up, can't get back to him. And this officer requested um, to go get his dog, and at which point his sergeant told him, no, we need to clear our way there first. Um, and he said, I'm going to get my dog. And the sergeant said, that's a direct order. You're not going to do that. This officer disregarded that direct order, got his dog, saved his dog, but now is facing the possibility of losing his gun and badge. Um, and, he believes he did the right thing. Um, but part of it was asking, did I do the right thing? Should I have done something different? So I thought, it really sparked me to thinking what I would do in that situation. And Chris, I'm sure you have great insights on that as well. I'll pass it to you. Let you give your thoughts and stuff on that.
Yeah, so I mean, I can see both sides of it realistically coming from the brotherhood mentality and that family bond of not just the military, not just, a law enforcement capacity, but also a canine capacity. All of my experience with my canines been civilian, but I'm going to tell you right now, Cooley, my service dog, he's my patrol dog. So he does apprehension, tracking, article search, and narcotics detection. He goes everywhere with me. We do everything. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I drive back and forth to Georgia. I go to Arizona. I go to New York, New Jersey. It doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, not too long ago, I had to drive and deliver a dog up in like Rhode Island. I had to drive through 2 states that I wasn't allowed to carry my weapons. So it's no longer under Leosa. Guess what? I was completely comfortable, even with all of my issues, my conditions. I was completely comfortable because I had him with me. I knew I was safe. So I get the side of nobody left behind. That's my partner. That's my best friend. Especially if it's we don't know what county, what size the county was. There's a lot of logistical information that's missing, and especially if it was a smaller department or a smaller area, there may be a lot of nights that was his only backup or that was his only partner. So 12, 14, 16-hour shifts, that's the only person you have. So that just intensifies that. At the same time, a direct order should be followed if legal. And it was a legal order. And from someone who was disassociated from that bond and that connection, from a leadership standpoint, I understand it. No, your human life is not equal to or less value than that animal's life. It's greater than. So it's not worth risking your life or the life of your team members to go in there and do this. Let's do it right. Let's work up there. Could it have cost the dog's life? Potentially. Could he have still saved the dog's life and not been in trouble, not disobeyed an order? Potentially. Life's full of the what ifs, so we have to look at the whole situation. But I think it's a good question. What would you do in that situation?
Yeah, and I did forget a detail. I just remembered another detail from it. It was a 7-year-old GSD, German Shepherd, that had been his partner for over 5 years at that point. So there is a closeness and a bond that you have with that canine, especially when in reality you've been through some shit. You've done some things, and I completely understand why he did what he did, to just like you, Chris. But the military side of me says an order's an order, but also there's that human side of me that says, would I have followed that order? But like I already mentioned, my canine, Padme. Uh, she's my my ride or die too. Like if I'm in a sketchy situation, I'm taking her. Some places, like for example, I live in Illinois, so gun laws are ridiculous up here, right? She's my only sense of safety sometimes, but I also trust her with my life. But then again, when I got her and I began training her for her job, sounds harsh to say this, but she's a tool. Um, her purpose is to find bombs so that I don't, and to go take out threats before they take me out. So there's always that risk, and knowing that risk that at any time she could die, um, especially when we're working. And I guess I didn't mention this, but I do help recover missing and exploited women and children, um, which sometimes means coming face to face with some really bad dudes. There is always that possibility that something could happen to her. And to your point, at the end of the day, it's if something happens to her, well, that's what your purpose was, right? Given the opportunity, I'm going to try to save you and prevent you from getting hurt. But if it's you or me, that's the entire point of why you're here. I That's kind of like almost sounds like I don't care, but I would do anything for that dog, right? But also she has a job to do just like myself. And again, I think about it like from like you said, like the military perspective, like we all have a job to do. If I was in combat and one of my brothers got hit, I'm gonna want to go save them. But if it's gonna mean that I'm gonna become a casualty and put somebody else's life in danger too. You've got to think things through and not act on emotion. And I feel like he acted on emotion in that versus thinking rationally. And I completely understand where the leadership came from too, right? Like that sergeant who's probably thinking less emotionally in that situation. He realized, well, hey, somebody just shot your dog. If you go in there, now you potentially become a casualty too. And now we have to come not get one officer down. We've got to get two officers that are down. And that's a worse situation. Fortunately, in that situation, that's not what happened. But I imagine that's what the sergeant was thinking about was we haven't cleared up there. We can't give you that support. You could very easily become a casualty too. And now we have a bigger mess. And when you're functioning as a team, you got to think about the team as a whole. Uh, yeah, you don't want to see one of your buddies go down or your canine go down. But if going to recover that is going to put you and the rest of your team at risk, you got to do what's best for the team.
Right. Do we know, do you remember from that article if this was like a standard movement, or if this was like a tactical team that did this, like a SWAT team or a response team?
It didn't really say, it just said squad.
Okay.
So
The
I would
reason,
imagine with it being like they're going in thinking it's a drug manufacturing facility, I would assume, which I we know what they say about assuming. Um, I would assume it was probably a tactical response team or a SWAT team, but it didn't give those details. I wish we knew a little bit more, but I couldn't find an article on it yet.
that's the perks and joys of the media. They're always just going to touch the surface with what's intriguing and keep you on there and not really let you know the rest of what you need to know to make a sound and independent decision. But
So this was from appeared to be from the officer directly. But he didn't have any of that information on there. I just went off the information that he had put out. So,
right. The reason I asked is the accepted field standard for law enforcement canines for their maintenance training is 16 hours a month, which is not anywhere near what it takes to upkeep a dog. You know that. I know that. I've got several dope dogs and an explosives dog that I have to run on every day, every other day, easy. And then one of them on top of that, I've got to keep fresh on tracking and patrol on top of that. So it's a very, very busy and extensive process, especially if you want to stay ahead of the curve. So the thing that has me wondering is not completely what would we have done. I think we both know what we would have done. At the end of the day, following a directive, following an order or not, he should have. We both agree on that. But we also take into consideration of we've walked a mile in his shoes, essentially, not in the same capacity, but in singular terms. And we also still have to be able to go to sleep at night. So that's what comes down to making that decision. Once I break that down and make that determination, I start looking at the variables, continue that training. Why were they so far behind the dog? Why was the dog allowed to get so far ahead? Which, don't get me wrong, I mean, situations happen, especially if there's pop shots through the door. You can't avoid that. Was the dog active alerting? Did he detect the person? Was it a patrol dog or a single purpose dog? There's a lot of variables that go into it. And I don't think that any of them affect the choice or decision morally or emotionally that we would make. But I do think that they're important to consider on the professional side of things when it comes from a leadership or a reprimand role.
yeah. And yeah, to that point, like I've gone to canine, like law enforcement canine schools, which we were talking about before we came on the air. And I don't think there's like a universal standard. It's for that, which makes things difficult because you don't know what their policies and procedures are, especially without knowing that department. But I mean, I ran situations generally my dog stays close, but in some of those schools they have you send the dog in and clear the building, and you're way back behind because clearly the dog can clear a building faster than I can. Um, and I've done the squad training, but every time I've done the squad training with the canine, we've cleared with the canine like to the rear until we get towards where the bad guys are, right? And then you deploy the canine, and it's no more than, two doors down. So yeah, which the math really kind of didn't math for me, right? Like, okay, how far apart are these doors? If you said he got to the third door, well, where's your team? Are they still stacked up on the entry door? Well, why, if he's cleared through those first two doors, why aren't you clearing up with him? And I kind of was wondering if he was even on lead, uh, because if he was on lead, then that wouldn't have been an issue either, right? You could have dragged him back to you on the lead. So yeah, I'm like there. I think that department needs to revamp the way they do their canines. Use that as a learning opportunity. But yeah, to your point, that's all stuff that they should consider. You shouldn't just take his gun and badge. Let's do some research and dig into that before you take his badge. But to your point, at the end of the night or the end of the day, we got to be able to sleep at night. Um, if saving your dog's life means more than losing your gun and badge, then you did the right thing. So,
Right, absolutely, and yeah, that's kind of why I asked if it was, do we know if this is a team that does this consistently? Because it doesn't sound like an incident or a mistake that a team that would be familiar or thoroughly prepared for this situation would happen. A team that was going to go in as a result of an investigation and using that as their probable cause, using that for their warrant, using that for their process to go in the first place, they're going to review the intel and the information that they have on that, which I've seen situations and I've worked situations in a training environment that sometimes the dog is on a long line and sometimes the dog's not. Depending on the building, depending on the situation. But even at that point, I agree with you. They should have, there's a lot that goes through here, and it's not, the officer has to be held accountable based on the information available from the investigation, which I'm sure is why there was so little information put out. It's probably still an ongoing investigation for the disregard of an order. But at the same time, the reason that dog got hurt in the first place wasn't just the handler's fault. If you go in as a team, you work as a team. If in any capacity that we work, if somebody gets hurt, everybody goes through a safety meeting. Everybody, one of my staff here at the kennels gets bit. Guess what? Everybody gets to refresh their own canine body language. And it's just a blanket protector. So the team's responsible at the end of the day. You work as a unit, you move as a unit, you win as a unit, or you fail as a unit.
right. And to that, yeah, like that canine is not a tool, which was just kind of something that he alluded to in there. Like, that's not just a dog, that's my partner. And really, that is your partner. That's like you said, that's a component of that team. And so you wouldn't leave one of your human teammates high and dry, or you shouldn't. So why are you going to leave your canine high and dry like that? Um, I really hope to see the findings and outcomes on it, and determine what actually happened there. Yes, he should have followed that order, but I don't blame him because he can sleep at peace at night knowing that he saved his dog's life. But also, you can't put all that blame on that officer. There was things that unit clearly did not execute well on, and that needs to be addressed too. Do I think in that situation that's something to take his gun and badge over? Probably not. Maybe reprimand him and say, "Hey, dude, you've got to follow orders." But that should be that. Yeah, that'd be an interesting one. I'm going to be looking for a published finding or report from that department outlining that, um, which he did say in his thing that he was putting that out there before they released the department released their side of the story, um, to clear the air. So I'm curious to hear what the department would has to say, which I'm sure I'll see it when it comes up. I'll find it.
Yeah, yeah, and I would agree with that. And that's kind of like you said, or like you kind of noted too. We spoke a little bit about it before we came on air, and that's why I asked what state it took place in, because some states canine officers are considered officers, and in some states they're not. And that's a pretty heavy variable as well, because everything works in fun and exciting ways, as we've seen time and time again, repeated over and over. If you're successful at something and it's deemed as a heroic action, disregarding that may be rewarded, but in this case, it may be reprimanded. So I think that also has a fact and a variable to play. If that canine was regarded and protected legally under the law as a peace officer in that county, in that state, then what he did was no different than saving another officer's life versus just the tool. Like you say, he's not just a tool to him at the end of the day. So I'm curious to see how the department views that, when what the law and legislature says on that, to see what state it came from. But yeah, it'll be interesting, and we'll have to reach back and touch on that one again once it gets finalized.
Yeah, yeah. Once we find the findings and we can look at the department's report on that, we'll definitely revisit this and talk about it some more. Um, but I absolutely don't fault the officer for making the decisions that he made. Again, life's about decisions, and you've got to make a choice. And he made the choice that he thought was the right choice. Whether the department sees that as right or not, well, that's the consequences, and we got to live with the consequences of what we do, whether good or bad. And if the consequences of saving your dog outweigh the consequences of losing your gun and badge, then you win at the end of the day. If not, well, then that's something different. Um, but yeah, so I guess we covered that pretty thoroughly. This is the kind of stuff we'll be talking about. Talking about things about uh, news, canine related stuff in the news, interviewing handlers, um, diving into our experience and sharing how to have a better relationship, whether it's a working canine or just your pet Fluffy. You know, um, that's the whole premise of this, is just sharing knowledge and uh, improving our quality of life with our canines. But on that note, we're gonna wrap this up. Thank you guys for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you next week. Well, actually, it'll probably be a couple weeks. This is just your test sampler. Put it out there for you guys. Give you a little taste of what we're going to be talking about. But again, my name is Michael.
I'm Chris.
Thanks for joining us.